Welcome back to the Girl Doc Survival Guide. Today, I'm very happy to be with Dr. Ray Goldsworthy. Dr. Goldsworthy, PhD, earned a Bachelor of Science in Physics from the University of Kentucky and a PhD in Health Sciences and Technology from Harvard University and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. After completing his doctoral training, he led development teams at Sensimetrics Corporation, where he designed signal processing strategies for cochlear implants and hearing aids, and developed auditory rehabilitation software. He joined the University of Southern California as an associate professor of otolaryngology in 2014. A cochlear implant user himself, Dr. Goldsworthy is dedicated to improving hearing for individuals with hearing loss through research integrating psychoacoustics, signal processing, and auditory rehabilitation. His work focuses on developing innovative cochlear implant technologies and rehabilitation strategies that enhance speech recognition and auditory performance. Welcome to Ray.
Thank you.
Can you first share a personal anecdote?
Let me start off by telling you a little bit about how I got the cochlear implant, because it's really my entry point into the field. I grew up in Kentucky. I had normal hearing until the age of 13. And then I lost it suddenly to a bout of spinal meningitis. I went from normal hearing to completely deaf in the course of a week. That was back in about 1987, 1988. At that time, they were just doing pediatric trials of the cochlear implant in America. After being deaf for a year, we elected to get to be part of that trial. I received my cochlear implant in 1988. Without it, I'm completely deaf. With it, I can hear really well. I can hear music. I can hear speech. It's restored a lot of hearing for me. And at some point in my education, I was studying physics, and I realized that I didn't have the same passion for physics as I did for my own hearing. I wanted to put my love of math into studying the implant and trying to design better stimulation strategies. How do you turn sound into electrical stimulation of the auditory nerves so people can hear again? That led me on my postgraduate studies so that I became an expert in cochlear implants and signal processing. With my current research, it's really about the term psychoacoustics, but that's really a word saying how well do you hear? How well can you hear simple sounds, and how does that translate to your ability to hear speech and noise in really challenging environments? Two of the really big things that pop out are how well can you hear in a noisy environment, in a restaurant or a party-like situation, and how well can you hear music? Because music is really hyper listening, it's very sensitive listening to small nuances, listening to different musical instruments at the same time. So a lot of my research is how well can you hear? And then a lot of my research is how do we make it better with a cochlear implant? What is it doing right now? What is its way of capturing sound and turning that into electrical stimulation? And how can we do that better? A very strong thrust of my research is focused on timing. The auditory system is actually the most precise in terms of timing information of any of the senses across animals. You can hear the difference between somebody who's talking when they're right in front of you and when they're only like 2 degrees off of that center. Your brain actually uses the timing differences between the ears that are on the order of microseconds. It's a very temporally precise system that we use. A lot of my research is trying to make the implant stimulation more precise in terms of the stimulation timing.
Wow, that's really cool. I was never good at physics. Can you give a simple explanation of how you do turn electrical signals into sound?
The simple explanation is you have a piano in your ear. In the inner ear, there's a membrane, and the membrane is such that the low frequencies vibrate in the apex of the top of the cochlea, and the high frequencies vibrate more in the bottom or the base of the cochlea. So if you were looking in your inner ear, you would see that it's responding to high frequencies in one place and low frequencies in another place. And that's actually why the cochlear implant is the most successful biomedical intervention for restoring a sense, because the auditory nerve comes up and spreads out. It spreads out very much like a piano. So if you go in there with an electrode array, you know that, oh, if I stimulate with this electrode that's deeply inserted, the person's going to hear a low pitch. And the one that's more shallow, they're going to hear a high pitch. You can literally play the auditory nerve like you would play a piano.
For anyone listening who doesn't know, my son is a bilateral cochlear implant recipient as well. In each cochlea of his, he has an electrode array that's 22 electrodes. I always was surprised that 22 electrodes, but even the very first cochlear implant, I think, was just one electrode or maybe 4 electrodes. I can't remember now. People could still hear.
Yes. Yeah, you raise a good point. The very first implant was 1 electrode, and then shortly after that, it was 4. Most today, somebody might be implanted with an electrode array that has 22. So your son has the most that can be implanted along the electrode array, which is the same as mine, and mine is almost 40 years old now. The implant companies are not innovating too much in terms of getting more electrodes in there, whereas you have 3,000 inner hair cells to pick that up. Then you have 30,000 neurons that are responding to that. I often extend the piano analogy to say it's almost like you're playing the piano with mittens on. However, I want to say that the frequency resolution or pitch resolution is much, much better than you might think when you're saying, like, I'm replacing 30,000 neurons with 22 electrodes. It's much better than that, because you could stimulate electrode 10, or you could stimulate electrode 11, or you could stimulate both of them with a different ratio of how much you're stimulating them. So you can get intermediate pitches. When we test pitch perception in cochlear implant users, we find that the average cochlear implant user can hear pitch differences on the order of 1 semitone. So the difference between A and A sharp in Western music, the smallest interval that's commonly used in music. So you can get a good bit of pitch perception. But that said, somebody with typical hearing can generally hear pitch differences down to about maybe a 16th of a semitone. So there still is a big difference between pitch perception, but is much better for cochlear implant users than most people realize. One of the quotes from one of the implant books that I always like is that if you met one cochlear implant user, then you've met one cochlear implant user, and that's it. You can't really extrapolate from the individual.
Yeah. Partly that's also why I'm excited to be able to talk to you, because I really just know my son as a cochlear implant user. We have been to a couple of cochlear implant conventions, especially when he was younger, and we attended John Tracy Clinic, where there was a group of anywhere from age 3 to up to age 5 kids who had mild, moderate, severe, profound deafness, some with hearing aids, some with cochlear implants.
I was part of some of those John Tracy Center camps back in the day. I do try to organize the community and bring together individuals for workshops at USCs. If people are interested, they should contact me about different things that we're trying to do to encourage cochlear implant recipients to rediscover music. We have a cochlear implant music hour, which is a Zoom hour where we invite a musician. The cochlear implant users come and we listen to the musician and we ask questions and we talk about how it sounds. And we do that every Thursday at 12:30 Pacific time. If anybody's interested, they can reach out to me directly. And we're also trying to organize more workshops. We always have at least one workshop a year on music and hearing loss to bring people together. Particularly, we're trying to increase it for children, for teens and younger, to provide free music lessons and music classes to anybody with hearing loss that wants them. I'm a good contact person for that.
Oh, that's awesome. I will put your contact information in the show notes for anyone who wants that. Can you talk a little bit more about your experiences as a CI user?
I'm not sure where to start, but let me start with, I like being able at times to turn it off. I think that's an interesting kind of public service announcement, because when you lose your hearing and you get it restored with a cochlear implant, there's a lot of, oh, yeah, it's a miracle. You should listen to it all the time. And you want to listen, but you're really working hard. There's a luxury to turning it off at times and just relishing in the silence.
Can I ask you about that, what you just said, that you're really working hard when you have them on? Is that forever?
You get better, you hear better, it gets easier, but then you get into more challenging situations. Listening to you now, I'm in a quiet office and I'm not really expending much effort. But I just came from a faculty meeting where there was a dozen people. We were rapidly taking turns talking, and it was more of a reverberant environment. I often go out to dinner with family and extended family. And in all of those situations, whoever has the worst hearing is working the hardest to stay in the loop. I'm working harder than somebody with typical hearing.
Yeah. Is there anything you wish you had known earlier?
Not really, because it all feels like it's part of the process. While I don't think it's something that I wish I would learned earlier, I wish I had more opportunity to interact with other people with hearing loss my age when I was young. I try to encourage that for young people with hearing loss today. I should shout out that we have a consortium of universities where we provide internship opportunities for undergraduates with hearing loss. And I'm a good contact about that as well. We mentor these students, and all of the mentors have hearing loss themselves. It's a really good support network. I wish I was more in the hearing loss community at a younger age.
Yes. Okay, great. Is there anything you wish that other people would know or you wish they knew already?
Echoing the part about building the community, I want them to be part of the community and part of the conversation. For example, it's so important if you have an aging loved one who's losing their hearing to keep them engaged in spoken communication. The more you communicate, the more it strengthens your cognitive processing. That's an important message. If they get to the point where they can't hear, then we need to look at that from an audiology perspective. Do they need a cochlear implant? Do they need a hearing aid? Is there some other way of communicating with them through sign language? Likewise, with children, to be successful in school, you need to know about being proactive and trying to take advantage of some of the services that you can get. We don't know everything that people don't know, but getting people talking in a community setting will solve all of that just by the talking process and being part of that community.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like what you're saying is we need to stay curious and consider that there are things that we don't know, each of us, right? There are things I don't know, of course, and there are things that I would want to learn. One other thing I wanted to talk to you about is identity. You had hearing up to age 13. You had an identity as a hearing individual before, and then you had a year period at least where you were deaf. I'm not sure if you used ASL at that time. And then you're a cochlear implant user today, and you're also a professor, you're an advocate, you have these wonderful programs, you're a faculty member, you were at a faculty meeting earlier today. Could you talk about identity?
I feel like as I get older, I identify with being deaf more. When I first lost my hearing, I got the implant, and I often didn't think of myself as being deaf. It's kind of like, oh, they fixed that kind of thing. It just works so remarkably well that I can understand people and have conversations. I struggle in noisy situations, but as I get older and I take it off, I enjoy being deaf, enjoying the silence. I do embrace that aspect more. I do see myself, I'm deaf and I have a cochlear implant, which allows me to hear again. So I identify a lot more with being deaf as I get older.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I think we should end on what you said about the importance of curiosity, letting that lead to a stronger community and engagement, but also for science, continually make the technology better through curiosity-driven science.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, my pleasure. I enjoyed it too.